So what I want to do a bit different this week, I just want to talk a little bit about happiness. And often these conversations, we dive into the nature of mind, and we answer people's questions about their own perception. So how you're perceiving the world, how you're perceiving the self, your separate self, whether or not you're aware of yourself as awareness. And they're very interesting conversations, but sometimes I feel it's good to approach the subject of non-duality just from the very human perspective of happiness. What constitutes happiness? What is that? Because at the end of the day, it's mostly what people are looking for. It's just that the way happiness is described, or the way that we learn about happiness, we learn it's to do with the acquisition of something, whatever it might be. You're in a particular moment. Let's say you're at work and you want to leave work, and you've still got 3 hours to wait until you leave work. So then you can feel unhappy because there's a gap between your current experience and the experience that you would like to have. So there is an appearance arises of discontent that we call unhappiness. And then that can be resolved in three ways. One, you wait until you leave work and then you feel happy. But that's often very fleeting. So the moment that you leave work, there's a sense of relief and you leave. But then very quickly, the next thing that you want to change moves into the field of view. And now you want that to change. It might be that your bus is late, or your taxi is too expensive, or whatever it is. So that form of happiness is actually, in certain Buddhist teachings, is called the suffering of change, right? So it's actually a suffering based on the perpetual change of existence. So either there's things that you don't have that you want to acquire, and there's things that you do have that you want to go away. And because the control of this system is outside of our own capacity to a large degree, it creates suffering. So it's, I feel unhappy, now I feel happy, I feel unhappy, now I feel unhappy. And this is an endless process that we go through. The other way to resolve happiness is to recognize there is no self. So the inward path would be, who is the one that's going to leave work? Who is the one that's going to enjoy that moment? Is it just a collection of thoughts and appearances? And if it is, am I any of those, or am I the observer of those? So once we break that, the condition of there being a doer that's going to become happy, we're now looking at it in a non-dualistic way. So the other way about happiness is to actually try and get the things. But then you realize no matter what you get, you literally are immediately, after a fleeting moment of relief, you're back to where you started. And the other way I mentioned was the inward path. Now, the other way that I talk about a lot in my work is the outward path. And this is dissolving the nature of the object. In this case, we was talking about the happiness of leaving work. So that image of leaving work is completely empty, and it has no validity. It doesn't have any substance. It's just an appearance of pure space. And every part of that process of changing your state from being in work to being out of work is also inherently empty. So that also ends the suffering. So when it comes down to the practice or the understanding of non-duality, it can sometimes feel a little bit maybe less impressive, when really what it boils down to is finding happiness in the moment, and finding that happiness is the moment, free of the elaborations. So when you practice not attaching value to whatever's appearing, but just allowing it to be an appearance that's arising, whether it's the arising of the self or arising of the external appearances, regardless, when you see that they arise as awareness, abide as awareness, and subside as awareness, happiness is what remains when everything else has been left to be as it is. And how do we know this? Because it happens in our daily experience. So if you go on holiday and you arrive at a beautiful destination, there's a moment of happiness, but it's not the destination that contains the happiness. The happiness is built in your nature. If you don't mind muting, I can do it here. Okay. The happiness is built in to the nature of mind. All what happens when you arrive at this holiday destination is your mind says, I agree with this, and then joy appears immediately. I agree with this. And then what happens? You've been there 10 minutes and you're just agreeing with this, and then a bunch of really noisy tourists, a big group, also staying at your magical hotel, are right next door to your room. And immediately you stop agreeing with it. So if the happiness was the sunset and the beach, if that was the happiness, it wouldn't be disturbed by the people coming next door who are rowdy and noisy or whatever it might be. So it's very helpful sometimes to just move away a little bit from some of the deeper conversations that we have about the nature of mind, and even some of the deeper teachings and the ancient text, and just start to explore, are you happy on a day-to-day or moment-by-moment basis? And this is the question I'm posing for you today. If you feel you want to share on this, is what is your, I want to hear more about your actual life experience, your lived experience, whether you feel you're living your experience in a liberated way, whether thoughts are dominant, whether sensations are dominant, and how is your actual experience as a non-dual practitioner? Has it changed from before? Is it the same as before? Are there any aspects that may seem feel limited? So I want to understand a little bit your lived experience, where you're currently at, and what's appearing for you.